Okay, today is Friday, April 11th. Um, our daughter just picked our grandbaby up. We had her all day. It was an incredible day. Um, it's just amazing. She's crawling now like a mad, just running around. It's wild that 8 months ago she was, being born. Took her for a walk. That was a lot of fun. Something I'm very grateful for. But as I was driving around doing deliveries, DoorDash deliveries to make income while I'm waiting on manifesting a job and the opportunities that I am working on. Started thinking, and I really want to kind of talk a little bit about what I'm doing. I've kind of discussed a little bit about the waking up in the morning, spending 15 minutes then first with gratitude, and then doing some sort of manifesting meditation where you're just using your imagination. Then throughout the day, and then again in the evening right before bed, because you want that when you first wake up. The studies have shown that you're most impressionable when you first wake up, and then as you drift off into sleep, those are the times that your subconscious is most able to be impressed upon. And you know, you hear a lot of the speakers that are out there talk about. I know I've heard Elmer Locker say, and others say, not to talk about what you're doing. You don't need to share with everyone because it's something that's really personal and internal, and it's something that only you can do. And it's something that unfortunately 99.99% of the population will not do because it's difficult and it takes discipline and it takes faith, which is ironic that there's so many people who claim to have faith in so many things, but they don't have faith in themselves. The one thing that they doubt is that they can do something. And so one of the steps that I take is I set little goals and little things that I'm trying to manifest, to create. And I think that's helpful because, to say you want to be a millionaire is great. And you can imagine that. And it kind of feels like you're watching a movie, maybe, where you're not, you're watching the movie and you're kind of imagining you're, John Wick or whatever, but you're probably not going to go out there and take on the entire nation of hitmen. But it's a little escape, and you do kind of get lost in your imagination. That's what it can feel like in the beginning when you first start doing it. And so what I think is helpful, and what has helped me at least, is little things that might seem a little difficult, but that you believe you can do. And what got me to thinking about this was, when people doubt that you create what you have, a good way to think of it is you're still here right now. So you have created something. You haven't lost everything. There's something inside of you believes that you can just get by, maybe make just enough. And because you believe that, you do it. And so you've already proven it to yourself without knowing it. You already have. That's why the saying, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, is because when you grow up with wealth, you just assume that wealth is going to be there. And so that's what you create. You create what you've seen. And it doesn't always work that way, but that's kind of the way that pattern kind of falls in. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And they don't know that they're doing it. You don't sit down and think, oh, I'm assuming this and therefore it's happening. And you don't do it the other way either. You don't think, oh, I'm assuming I'm poor, that's why I am, or struggling or whatever. So you're already proving it to yourself in a way. But what I do is I say, okay, I set little goals, and it's kind of easy for me because as I'm delivering, I'll think the night before, and maybe it's an amount of money that I really need to make, or I just set a goal. And it has been uncanny, the fact that if I maintain that feeling and I think about it during the day, it has never failed me yet. I've matched it. So you would think, well, if that's proof, then just do bigger. And that's the goal. That's what we're trying to get to. But I'm slowly increasing and adding more and more things. And you can do that. You can set little goals like that. And those just reinforce, and then it makes the beginning, when you begin to manifest bigger things. I found myself driving the other day, and I think I mentioned in a previous video that sometimes I kind of let my mind wander as if I'm driving the car that is our dream car. It's a little, or my wife's dream car. It's a little bit easier because it's the top model of the car that I actually drive, so I kind of can get that feeling. That's a little helpful. But the other day I found myself driving, and all of a sudden that car, the very car that she wants, was right in front of me. And as I was looking at it, I had to snap myself out of realizing that I felt like I was driving that car. But that was a mirror image, and it wasn't. But I've done the same thing with the Jeep and the Jeep that I want. And again, those are material things, and this is not all about material. It's about creating a feeling of happiness in your life. And people can say what they want, but money and material things are definitely a part of that. And I have a very passionate desire to help others. And I can't do that until I have taken care of my family and myself. Then I can help others more fruitfully. But keep those ideas in mind. Try those little things. Set little goals. Again, keep it to yourself, because I'm telling you, you're going to have. If you spread it to friends and family, people are gonna think you're wasting your time, or you're delusional, that it's silly, whatever, and that's not going to help you to hear that. Now, when you do hear it, you have to push it aside. If someone does know, and they or they just happen to be talking about it, and talking about how silly manifesting is. I saw a video the other day, or a podcast I was listening to, and they were talking about that, and I just have to kind of let that go in one ear and out the other, and think, well, they just don't realize it. They just don't understand that this is not a magical woo-woo. It's pure science. This is truly, I believe that in 100 years, this is going to be commonplace. A quick story. When I was first getting into weight training and bodybuilding, I heard the story of Arnold Schwarzenegger and how he, at the age of 18, created what he called the master plan. And he laid it out that he was going to use his body to become the greatest bodybuilder ever, that he was going to parlay that into becoming a great movie star and be the highest paid movie star, action movie star, and he was going to marry into a wealthy family. And he did all of those things very systematically. Now, you can argue whether or not it's a good idea to say, I'm going to marry into a wealthy family, and that being, maybe you could take that into consideration, how you feel about that. But the point is, he did it. But on a more specific level, I remember him talking about in his bodybuilding how, as a little boy, he would look out and see the mountains, and he would picture his biceps looking like the peaks of those mountains. And if you've ever seen Arnold, or if you're into weight training and bodybuilding, you'll know he was known for having an incredible peak on his bicep. And then later, when it came to America and all, he had realized that he was very deficient with his calves. He had terrible calves. So what he do? He took all his pants and cut them off at the knees so that he would have to see them in the gym. And he began envisioning having calves that were bigger. And they got so incredible that he was accused of having implants. Now, this was in the 70s. And calf implants back then were very, very rare, and they certainly weren't good. And they definitely didn't flex like his did. So the point being is that I got to thinking, and when I first got into bodybuilding, I used to joke with people long before I ever knew anything about manifesting or anything like that. But I used to joke and say, one day you're going to be able to have a mental workout, because if you think about it, your body responds to a stimulus that your brain sends to the muscle, and the brain sends that in response to the stress that's put on that muscle. But it's still just a signal sent to grow. And if you could bypass the need to have the weight itself, and the stress and trauma, then you could still send that same signal. Even if people say, oh yeah, but it's from micro tears and all, doesn't matter. It's still only growing as a signal from the brain to that muscle. I don't really care to do that because I truly enjoy weight training. It's something that is as much I do for mental as I do for physical. But I have noticed that as I have gone through life and I've had different goals with my body, I've been able to manifest and to create those things. And it's easy to go, well, you just worked harder in that area. And maybe so. But I know that it started up here. I started thinking it. So I've just begun looking for ways to reinforce it in myself. So maybe take some time and just think about your own life, good or bad, things that you have held on to, ideas, thoughts, goals, or things that you were afraid of that you really held on to, and maybe they came about. It's just something to think about. But I really appreciate you guys watching. Anybody that's hearing this, I'd love to hear from you or hear any comments. Like I said, good or bad, you can't say anything that's going to be worse than the things I've said to myself. And if I can get past those, I can get past anything you can say. Appreciate you talking or watching, and hope to be back tomorrow or the next couple days.